Buddy, how are you doing? This is myself, Irish Fenian, and I'm joined by Btwixt. And today we are going to talk about the movie Rocky 4, which was released in 1995. It was directed, written, and acted by Sylvester Stallone. It also starred Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed. Starred Talia Shire as Rocky's wife, and also starred Dolph Lundgren as Ivan Drago. And this is a movie that I think we all probably grew up on. At our age group, I'd say it was a very great film. It was at the time. So as I was saying, it's a film that I really enjoyed when I was a child. I must have been about, God, it must have been only about 4 or 5 when I first seen it. The first one I seen was actually out of the franchise was Rocky 2. I remember my father recorded that one night and I got up and seen it the following morning. Thought it was brilliant. But Rocky 4 was the second installment that I seen. And what about yourself, Btwixt? When was the first time that you seen this film?
It would have been at the end of the 1980s. We got a video recorder and it was Christmas time, and I think you were able to rent out films for the Christmas, so you'd have them, you'd have the videos there over the Christmas. And I remember we had Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and we also had Rocky 4, and that was my very first Rocky film to see. And I remember actually at the very beginning of Rocky 4, it shows, from the previous film where he's fighting Clubber Lang, Mr. T.
Yeah.
And
they always done that in all the franchise, in every Rocky. It was always the bit before, or the one before.
I think it was very clever though, because I remember saying, "Oh, I want to see Rocky 3. I want to see Rocky 3. I want to see how he got on fighting Mr. T." that was what was in my head at the time. But I have very fond memories. We watched it a number of times over that Christmas, and it was symbolic of the Cold War, which seems to be happening again to some sort of extent anyway.
Yes, there does seem to be a proxy war going on at the moment. Okay, so you told us a bit more about the start of the film of Rocky 3. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that, Btwixt?
We have Rocky and Apollo Creed. And I guess this is the very end of Rocky 3 as well, where they're having this bout. And Apollo Creed is kind of pissed off that he lost. He lost the final, the championship in Rocky 2. So he wants to get even, and it's just between them. It's closed to the public, just two friends having a bit of sparring. And we then get a dialogue. I think this is really the beginning of the film where, they're talking about this Russian, this Ivan Drago. He's coming over to America. The guy is considered some sort of Frankenstein monster, a machine. And the Russians, they want him to have an exhibition against a highly rated American boxer. And I think Rocky is retired at this stage. Apollo Creed is obviously retired as well. But Creed he's at his mansion and he's just lying in his swimming pool. So he's made his fortune, but he doesn't look happy. And he has all these dogs and he's throwing tennis balls for the dogs to fetch. And you can see he's restless. He wants to do something new. He wants a challenge. And he says it a number of times to Rocky in the movie that, they're fighters. That's just the way they are. They can never really stop fighting. So he gets this idea that he will take on Ivan Drago. And he goes over to Rocky's place to discuss it with him. And Rocky is hesitant about it because, he's trying to say to Apollo Creed in a very nice way that he's over the hill. His father time has caught up on him, as it has Rocky Balboa. But Apollo Creed doesn't really want to listen to that. According to Apollo Creed, once you do the best you can, you can always take on anyone. And yeah, this is what happens. So what do you make of this? Apollo Creed wanting to fight the Russian, Irish Fenian?
Yeah, Interesting the way you said about the way they had the fight with and Apollo Creed didn't want any TVs, no newspapers, none of this. I was always curious as to who really won that fight because you never actually showed it. Do you remember the fight at the start?
Is this in at the end of Rocky 1 or Rocky 2?
No, it would have been. Remember, just after like you see the Rocky 3 bit, and then when Apollo goes into the ring, and it's just the two of them, and they're fighting, and they're gonna have a fight. It's never like who actually won that fight. It's like because Rocky ends up driving home, and his kid is there with a camcorder, and he says, who gave you that black eye? Or and he goes, a friend gave it to me. And who gave you the hat? Same friend. But I always wonder who won that match between the two of them. That was no TV, no newspapers or anything.
They had a gentleman's agreement, I suppose. They had a gentleman's agreement. But we do see them actually when Apollo visits Rocky and he's talking about, taking on the Russian. They're watching old footage of their professional bout.
From the second one, yeah.
And I there's a lot of banter now. They're friends now. They're not, they're not competitors. They're friends, and they're kind of going down memory lane. I got a great punch on you in this part and this sort of stuff. And yeah, it's kind of, I think this happens to a lot of men that they want to remain young, and it's difficult for them to realize that they're getting on and they're no longer capable of doing what they were able to do in their 20s and their 30s.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that now. But but as I going back to when you were saying he went over to Rocky's house, like Apollo knew straight away like that this was more than just a fight, and this is why like I know like he was just saying it's just an exhibition or whatever, but he knew that this was politics. He knew that this was the Soviet Union as he thrown that into the ring, but I think he actually got jealous when you were saying that he was in the pool with his dogs, and I think what's his Nikolai was his name. I think it was one of his trainers. Was that what his name was? Nikolai. I think his real name is Michael Piketty or something. But he was saying he wanted to have an exhibition match with our famous champion, Rocky Balboa. And you could just see, like, Apollo's face just, as if it was getting real angry, like, why not me? Like, kind of thing. Like, it's like, well, because he doesn't have the belt anymore, doesn't have nothing, But, like, he knew that this was all about politics and going on about, we're the warriors, something that you just can't turn on and off. And, and as I said, this would have been, or you said, sorry, this would have been during the Cold War period. So that would have been still very, high tensions at that time.
Yeah, it was a propaganda piece. Like as you get to the end of the movie, like it seems to be pure propaganda. But I should say as well that, Apollo Creed, he was jealous because the Russians, they wanted to arrange an exhibition with Rocky. He wasn't even mentioned. He was completely stepped over, And he actually says when he's talking to Rocky at Rocky's place, he actually says, you're the champion of the world, but as soon as you leave the ring, as soon as you retire, no one has a clue who you are. So he has this idea in his head that, for years he was able to walk around and be noticed, and, kids were coming up wanting his autograph. And now nobody knows who he is. He's just some rich guy, a lonely guy, lying on an airbed in a swimming pool outside his mansion, throwing the tennis balls. That's all he is. And yeah, it's quite interesting. And Rocky, I have to say, Rocky, he does try to talk. He tries to talk Apollo Creed out of it, and he realizes that it's falling on deaf ears. And instead of actually talking him out of it, he ends up becoming his kind of trainer for the exhibition.
And it's mad. I didn't think that that little bit of a script that I was reading just for that you sent me, that was 107 pages long. I was just reading through a bit of it, and I seen Apollo did do some training for it, but you never showed it in the film. Because I was saying, someone like, hasn't fought in like 5 years, and then he suddenly just get into the ring like that. I was saying, well, how crazy is that?
It goes to show how desperate he was, to get back into the limelight.
And he gave this big James Brown performance and all. But I think we're getting a bit ahead. I think the press conference comes up, doesn't it? And he's very, Apollo Creed's very jovial, and he's a bit he gets very arrogant when when Drago's wife says, Apollo Creed is well respected, and then she just turns around and said it could be a good victory. That didn't sit down well at all, because he was like, you don't really think you're going to whip me, do you? And that kind of got into a heat exchange. But there was a few funny quotes, not quotes, but lines that he says, like when he goes, when one of the trainers, I think it's your man Nikolai again, that old chap, I thought he was funny in it. But he goes, how can you be so sure? Well, I've been with the best, and I'll beat the best. I've retired more men than Social Security.
Actually, yeah, the funniest part, the funniest part of the movie is actually that press conference. He also says, because if you notice, Drago, when we get the first, at the beginning of the movie, when we see Drago, he doesn't really speak, and then at the press conference, he doesn't speak. And I think he's asked something and he doesn't respond. And then Apollo Creed says, it looks like, he says something like, oh, you're missing your tongue. Maybe you didn't get through customs.
He goes, the man's tongue didn't come through customs.
Yeah. He's very funny. He's very funny. But his humor becomes bitterness when the Russians say, this would be a good victory for us. He suddenly does a 180. Yeah, it's no longer fun and games. He's standing up, he's posturing.
And then the trainer again, and he goes, Drago should not even fight this man because he is a has-been, and that was he just seen red, and that's when he stands up and he's let go of him right now. We'll settle it here, and so he really had a chip on his shoulder, about this. He really wanted him, and I had to laugh as well when you just get that heavy eye, heavy eye by ball ring or with eyes in the ring, and let's go. But then when it was out, and he goes, just we'll finish this in the ring, we will, and you shut up and all these whatever you's brought, and we just turns to Rocky and he goes, how did I do? And Rocky's there, a little loud for my taste, but good. Oh yeah, very good. Rocky, so it's like he's doing this big show, like even though it was angry and all that, but it was still all a show. Like, how did I do?
It's a sort of Muhammad Ali performance in a way.
Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, Rocky's only input in the press conferences, they ask him about Apollo's chances or something, or what does Apollo need to win this? And Rocky says a stepladder. He says a stepladder. You mentioned the sun. And I watched this film. I watched it, I think it was at the start of this year. It was on, I decided I hadn't watched TV in a long time. And I'd see what was on Spanish TV. And,
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I don't even watch TV anymore. You're better off.
No, I don't blame you. But I decided one Saturday night, I said, I'll see if there's any movie on. And Rocky 4 was on, and I watched it. And I was watching it, and I was thinking the son looks, the son in the film, he looks a bit like Sylvester Stallone. And I got this idea in my head. I think it is his son, because I think I read something before about it. And I looked it up, and it turned out that was his son. That was Stallone's son, his biological son.
Now, I know his son. Now his son Sage Stallone was in number 5. But his son died now. That particular son, I'm not sure whether it's the same one.
I think it's the same one. Yeah, I think it's the same one. Yeah.
Yeah, could be because like he's more of a teenager in Rocky 5, but it could be, yeah, could be.
Yeah, but there's a scene, you know, where Rocky is talking to his son in the bedroom or something, and he's like, you know, I love you and all this, and the son is grinning, you know, and you can see there's chemistry there, and obviously there is. It's a real father and a real son.
Yeah, well, you know, he's always like he's always there for him. Well, I mean, he has the money to be there for them, you know, all the time.
Yeah, I think Stallone, you know, Brigitte Nielson, I think Stallone dated her for a number of years as well. So
yeah, actually, funny enough, yeah, I remember hearing the chap that played Drago, Dolph Lundgren. He was saying that when he first went, it was Stallone's wife. I can't think of her name, but it wasn't Brigitte Nielsen, and she turned him down straight away. Just looked up and said too tall, you know. But Rocky or Sylvester Stallone had seen photos or something of him, and then wanted him then in the end. But I think that's what I think. Yeah, he started having an affair with her, and I think that's where his marriage broke down with the other one. I can't think of her name now. God, Jesus, probably could come back to me.
Yeah, people will tell us in the comments. I was going to say as well, we have to mention, because I said to you through email when we agreed that we'd talk about Rocky 4. I said we have to mention the robot.
Oh, it's Pauly's
robot. What do you make of that scene? So just to let people know, you know. Just to remind people, yeah, it's a party. It's a birthday party for Paulie, who's the brother-in-law of Rocky, and the present is now. This is completely mid-80s. You know, the idea that we'd have robot butlers. You know, this massive robot comes in and says, you know, "Happy birthday, Paulie," and then later on they change the voice or the chip or whatever, and it's a female voice. You know, what do you make of that, Irish Fenian?
Well, I mean, it was 1985. I remember when I was younger, I used to say that to be flying cars by the year 2000, and you know, maybe like they thought that was, you know, it could be possible, you know, but whatever, because I believe, like, I haven't seen his new one that he done of it. But I believe that he took the robot out of it and all that, and he kind of there was bits added in, but I think it was just bits that, you know, was stuff off the cutting room floor or something. Just add that in or something, you know. And he also, you know, as he went on to, remember when he done the Rocky Balboa, not the first one, but just the one that was called Rocky Balboa. The punches had gone down because the 80s. I think for Apollo Creed getting killed, I think he said that they used a baseball bat and a watermelon or something for that effect. That punch, you know, crazy things like that. But I thought, you know, it's the 80s. You know, the sounds after them. You know, like he sounded like explosions, but I mean, like, you know, it was all fun, you know. You know, and plus, it's, you know what, a funny thing actually. I'll give you a funny story. I seen, as I said, when I was about 4 or 5, and I hadn't even seen my first real boxing match by then. And after seeing Rocky and all that, as I said, like the first one I seen was the second one. My father recorded that one night, and I got up one morning, and I was just in the machine still, the VCR. And then I seen Rocky 4, so like after that, so they were the only couple that I seen, and I always heard sounds of the punches. And when I seen my first boxing fight, I was saying, "Where's the sounds from the punches?"
Yeah, they really went overboard, didn't they? They really went overboard with the sounds, like, you know.
But it's like to a 5-year-old child, or you know, it sounded brilliant though, it did, you know. But yeah, that was one of my very first, earliest memories. Because as I said, that probably would have been, yeah, the first kind of fight that I would have seen on TV, and it was a film, like. And I thought, like, well, that's what fights were like. Crazy, like, crazy.
Yeah, I should say, I forgot to mention, you know, the very first image I think, is of the movie is a pair of boxing gloves, and one is, you know, the American flag, and the other is the
And the
Soviet
others,
Union.
yeah.
I have to say that is beautifully done, especially for 1985. I just thought that was really, really well produced.
The way they just turn and then go at each other, and they both explode. No, it doesn't look like one doesn't explode, the other. It's just like they both boom, you know, they both explode.
Very, very much the sentiment of the time that these two superpowers would annihilate each other, you know.
Yeah, like, I mean, I was only like the Soviet Union was still going when I was a kid, like, you know. Fair enough, I was real young and that, but you know, like that I think that was 91 when that got, you know, when they ran out of money, you know, fighting in Afghanistan and that. But as I said, yeah, like, you know, like that, like for a lot of people, you know, like they could be born in the 2000s. Like, I mean, the Soviet Union like ended well before. Well, you know, people always say, you know, like it ended, but you know, the communists are still there, though. If you know what I mean, like.
Well, you know, when rats flee a ship, they'll go to another one, and it's possible that it's the European Union now. Is the commie hellhole, you know?
As Gorbachev said, yeah.
I was going to say, you know, when they're having kind of press conferences and they're showing how strong Drago is. Like, I have a part here. It's this guy Rimsky. And he says, do we not embarrass you whenever our athletes meet? And then it says, Rimsky turns to Ivan Drago, and the giant throws a punch into a padded area, above which is a digital readout, the meter 1,650 pounds. And then Rimsky says, your so-called heavyweight averages 700 pounds of pressure per square inch. Drago averages 1,650 pounds. So the results quite obvious. And I remember when I saw that, you know, as a kid, I immediately thought, right, so the Russian is twice as strong as anyone else in America, you know.
But yeah, I think though they must have gave that part to the other fella, the more older fella, Nikolai, because remember the press were going to ask him a question. Well, what does all this mean and all that, and then he just was saying, well, and then he steps in, if I may answer that. It makes a man a better man, a super athlete, by harnessing all his strengths. The most of the world is ignorant to body chemistry, but, you know, we wish to educate your country. And then they start going on about blood doping and all that, and you can see that the wife gets a bit, you know, nervous and that, and she makes a bit of a joke like, well, how do you explain his freakish strength? And she kind of goes, oh, like your papa, he takes a spinach every day. Like, you know, that kind of defuse the kind of situation there.
Yeah, you said earlier about Apollo, you know, that Apollo was kind of taking up the whole political thing. There's a quote from him here where Adrian, she's asking him, you know, why? Is it for money? And he's like, no, it's not about the money. And then he eventually says, after the robot, because the robot interrupts them, and then he says, Apollo says, back to business.
You actually asked me about that, sorry.
Yeah, he says, back to business. I don't want this bum coming over here and trying to make us look bad. They try every other way, but this time we'll make them look pitiful. So I was going to say, you mentioned how the Russians, you know, it's all kind of science, empiricism. You know, we get it even an image later on that they're injecting Drago with something. We believe it's steroids, but it's never said. So they're kind of on the cutting edge of science. Whereas the Americans, it's kind of like Rocky, you know, in the butchers, at the back of the butchers, pummeling the carcasses, you know, and there is this, you know, it's very much an American style, especially in these movies, that, you know, for the American to win, they just have to have heart. They don't need to study. They don't need to look at science. They don't need to take any steroids or anything like that. Once you're a plucky character, you'll overcome the Frankenstein monster.
Yeah, but it's like back in them times, wasn't all the big, huge Hulk Hogan wrestlers and all that? They were all on the bloody steroids, so like it wasn't as if it was anything new. You know, like they just get their hands on a few doses. But yeah, you asked me about the robot and Paul. Yeah, well, yeah, as I said, at the time it was probably plausible that like they'd even done. I remember seeing things going back to the 50s, you know, where housewives would have robots to do chores and all that kind of way. So they've been doing that for years. So maybe that's what they were thinking, you know. And probably, yeah, with what they used to say with flying cars. But the robot comes in and, you know, Paulie's sitting there and he's winding, you know, one of them little toy, you know, what's the twisters or whatever. And he's like, he was waiting for Rocky for ages, he was, you know. But he's like, the little son, or the Rocky's son is saying, you're going to love your present, Uncle Paul, you know. And Paulie's there, where is it? As a parked in the driveway. You know,
he's freaked out. He's freaked out by the robot at first.
but he's expecting a big sports car. Yes. But the robot just like the lights dim down and the robot just comes in with a cake, you know, and the little tune comes on. I think the Spin Master out there, you know, the infamous Spin Master, know who he is. I think he done a bit of a tune on that. But yeah, and then it's Happy Birthday, Paulie, and all. And then he just, you know, and he's so disappointed. Like he just looks at it. He's like, I wanted a sports car for my birthday. I didn't want any walking trash can.
I was going to say as well. That I have a quote here from Apollo. It more or less sums up what I was saying earlier. So he's still adamant that he's going to fight the Russian, and he says, "No, you're wrong. They care when you're bleeding. They care when you're getting pounded to death. But soon as you step out of that ring, nobody cares. You spend years trying to get people to respect you, and years learning to respect yourself. Then you step out of the light for a while, and your ancient history." So, you know, when I watched this a few nights ago, I was thinking he's more or less predicting his own demise here. He is ancient history. He's a dead man walking, really.
As the chap said at the press conference, like, this man is a has been, you know, and you know, could you imagine if you were, you know, one of the top fighters that was on top of the world and all that, and someone calling you a has been, and he'd be like, you know, like I nearly feel like that was I know that he wanted to fight him, but he wanted to fight him even more because he was slagged off. You know, he really wanted it now. You know, like.
Yeah, I suppose we're getting up to the fight between Creed and Drago. Now, would you like to give the audience your opinion of the difference between Drago entering the ring and Creed entering the ring?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you're doing that in real life, that costs a lot of bloody money. Secondly, I don't know why Creed wants to do a big dance, you know, off for, 10 minutes, or about 5 minutes, but, something like that going on for 10, 15 minutes probably. But the way Drago entered, one of the things that I always wanted to know, and if anyone can speak Russian, I want to know what Nikolai says when Drago's in the ring and he's talking in Russian, and then he puts both his knuckles together. Is that a sign that, like, kill him or something like that? I always wanted to know that. Like, do you know the part that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's said. I do know that Raz, because later when Rocky goes to Russia, they have Raz 1, Raz 2, so that has to be round 1, round 2.
Yeah. But your man was talking in Russian, and you see, do you know the way you see in the fight, the way there's all coppers all going around, but he comes up in the ring, but he was talking in Russian, and then he like bangs his knuckles together at the end before he walks off. And I was just thinking, is that him giving a command? You know what I mean? Make sure you kill him or something like that. You know, like I don't know about that. But yeah, Drago comes up a very funny way. I remember, I think in an interview he was saying, like, when he first came up, like, those looks on his face were really sad. Like, 27-year-old kid, he says, because he was 27 at the time, and he says, I just came up and I see all these women dancing and I see James Brown on the stage, and he's like, what the hell's going on here? Kind of like, it wasn't something that he was really expecting. He was very obviously told about it, but it was probably a surreal experience. And then he had like, the fighter planes and all, so, and then he had Creed coming down, and he had, what was that thing he was punching? It was like a ball or something. Looked like it was one of these things, and like a bit of like a belch of fire would like come out or something like that.
Yeah, it's over the top. Like Creed is putting on a massive. I was actually thinking, because Creed, he's probably in his early 40s or something, right? And he's doing so much dancing and shadowboxing before fighting this young Russian fella. I was thinking he's going to be absolutely knackered by the time the bell rings.
That's what I was saying. Like he's doing a jig for like, I don't know how long, and he's there with James Brown, and and doing all the dancing around, and and then like he's mocking Drago and all. Like you see him like he's flicking his fist over at him, and I don't know, it's crazy. Like it's something that like, but as I said, on that script that they sent me, that there's a part where he actually does training, but he cut that out because a lot of people say that Rocky IV is a lot of montages, and I suppose there is a lot of montages in it. It was kind of really cut down. It was, I suppose, with the dialogue.
A damn good soundtrack, I have to say, though. I really do like that 80s soundtrack from Rocky IV.
Yeah, a lot of people like always, with me, with the dance music and all that, like, because that was what was out when I was young and playing things. But no, I actually like the 80s stuff as well. Like I thought each song kind of suited, like the way it started off with You Are the Tiger and Club Lang. I liked when Rocky went the James Brown thing as well, and then when Rocky went over, it's who was your man? It was Vince DiCola, I think, that produced those tunes. But when Rocky goes over to Russia and he's training, and you see Drago on this, like, remember when Rocky goes out to run first, and then you see Drago and you see the machines and all the red stuff, and he's doing this, like, he's like on some kind of like this hand kind of press thing, with his legs and his hands, very, very good music now, I have to say. Very good soundtrack.
Yeah, I was going to say as well that you can see the difference between the two systems. Drago is very, very solemn looking in the ring. He's kind of meditating. He's focused. He's not dancing a jig or anything like that. He's there to do business. And Creed is dancing away, but it kind of looks quite degenerate. I would say, from the Soviet perspective, this whole American thing, the melting pot, shaking the hips, maybe a bit of twerking, whatever. It probably doesn't look very good from the Soviet perspective, and you can really see the clash of cultures there with Creed's presentation before entering, and as well as that, the song by James Brown, is living in America. So it doesn't say we are Americans or born in America. It's like living in America. So anyone can really become American once you live there.
Well, that's the thing. There's loads of like Irish and English and and German or whatever over there. But but it's like you just get your green card and your passport, and boom, you're an American. But that's the only place it really happens in the world. But well, it seems to be happening here now, and every other country. But yeah, that's what, and I think that they actually borrowed that model for every country. Like, oh, you just have to come here, and then you either just have to be get a piece of paper, or your mother could be 8 months pregnant and then just give birth to you. No, you're Irish. But that's the way the system works over there. Yeah.
There's a quote from Apollo. He's trying to he's trying to wind up the Russian, and he starts saying, "I want you, I want you." And Rocky says to Apollo, "Save your energy." And Apollo responds, "Relax, Stallion. It's just a show."
That reminds me of Conor McGregor when he was saying to Khabib, "Oh, it's just it's business. It's just business." You know, remember when he was saying that in the ring? Yeah. Yeah. So and then he doesn't last too long, Creed. And when he's fighting in the first round, and I'll be back in a minute. We didn't know that he's going to be back in a minute with a bloody fractured skull. But I was thinking like Drago was holding back for ages, and then his other trainer then did give some sort of signal. Did he say drag or something, or did he say something else? He said, I don't know bloody Russian like that. But that was when he stopped being, Apollo was kind of like, taking his punches, and the first few punches, and then he throws him across the ring. And I mean, and then he actually gives him, I think, a total of 5 punches after the bell rings. I mean, if that was any other fight, that would have been stopped, like straight away, like, but well, there has been fights in history that have gone when there used to be 15 rounds, years ago. Like I remember seeing one fight. I can't remember who it was, but it was black and white footage. But your man was in the corner and he was unconscious, and your man was still laying into him. And the referee, you can see him on the film, and he's just looking at him, and like he could have stopped at any time. And your man ended up dying, from it. So that's why, I suppose stricter rules had to be imposed on that kind of stuff, like. But yeah, as I said, but when you see Creed getting out of the corner, you would think that the referee would come over to him even and like say, like, have an out look at him, but you don't. But Creed doesn't want Rocky to stop it though, He's like, don't stop this for nothing, like, And he's like, Rocky's like, you can't do no more, champ, and all. And then, I gotta fight him, because as I said, it's he sees it in his head that he's the warrior, and he's getting to be the older warrior, I think, and the newer warrior is coming up, and as I said, the politics is well involved. So he wasn't going to let it go. He'd rather go out on a blaze of glory than to just give up and be in the corner.
You're dead right. You're dead right. He wanted to die in the ring. That was my impression, because Rocky wanted to throw in the towel. Wasn't that it? He wanted to, in the second round, he wanted to throw in the towel, and Apollo told him, at the end of the first round, he told him, whatever happens, don't throw in the towel. So I just say as well that, looking at that exhibition, the guy who plays Apollo, Carl Weathers, he actually looks like a boxer, like as in, his rhythm, the way he punches, his stance, everything. He actually looks like a proper boxer. Whereas, Dolph Lundgren, he looks clumsy. He looks like an oaf. he's got no real footwork. Yeah. He's got no real footwork whatsoever. But what he has is just his massive stature,
Yeah. But the thing is, though, he is a real kickboxer in life. He was, so he actually knew how to fight. I always thought Rocky was very sloppy. Well, the first one I wasn't really mad into, but the second one I thought, like, the fight, and especially Apollo Creed, he really did look like, because he was, and the way he do them combinations, he really did look like a boxer, really, like, perfectly. But Rocky was always so sloppy, swinging, and like, it was like when you seen him in the third one, like the first time he fights Clubber Lang, he's swinging all over the place. But then when Creed trains him, then he's throwing more the jabs he is then in the second fight, like, and like he kind of looks like he fights better than when he later on fights Drago then in the Rocky IV, So I always thought that he was a bit more sloppy, Rocky, But
I'll just say as well that, in Rocky 3, when Rocky I think he has a rematch, isn't it? He has a rematch with Clubber Lang. And Lang's downfall is that he gets very angry, And I used to box, and I remember in the club, you'd have to spar guys in the club, and the trainer would choose someone, similar weight or whatever, maybe
But
similar
here,
height.
are you calling me out or something, man?
Oh no, I'm not calling you out. But no, I was going to say to you.
Because I should let you know now. I've retired my man in Social Security.
I'm sure you have. And I'm sure your tongue got through customs as well.
Six of them did.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because as if we go right back to the start of Rocky 4, it's the match with Clubber Lang in Rocky 3, and I remember when I used to box and I'd spar guys, and there was a guy in a club I remember, and he was an okay boxer. He wasn't a bad boxer. He had good hand speed, whatever, and his problem was he didn't like being hit. So all you had to do with that guy was, if you got one jab in on him, he'd lose the rag and he'd start swinging like a gorilla, and then you could pick him off, And this is what happened at the end, in the Rocky 3 bout between Clubber Lang and Rocky Balboa, is that Clubber Lang got angry. He didn't like getting hit, so he kind of, his strategy went out the window, and that's, in the boxing ring, that the worst thing you can do is get angry. You have to stay focused all the time. So I was just going to say as well, because you were asking about Russian, I have a quote here. This must be in the first round between Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago. And Rimsky, he says in Russian, he's shouting to Drago, knock him out now. So
that's what he's saying.
Yeah, he wants the Russian to take him out very, very quickly.
What about the part where the other trainer, the older one, the one that's on the Politburo Bureau, at the end when Rocky's fighting, that when he's before he goes up in the ring and he puts his two hands together, is that on the script? Is it?
Which is this between Drago and Apollo Creed?
Yeah, it was before he fought. It was just before Drago goes up and here's James Brown and all that. But your man Nikolai talks for a few seconds, and I'm not sure what the words are, but he just puts his knuckles together, and it's as if he was giving him a signal, something either kill him or knock him out, or punish him or something. I don't. It could be something like that,
I have a quote here, and it says Russian's corner, Rimsky in Russian, right hand over the jab. So that's what he's shouting at the Russian.
Yeah, I do have to laugh when Sylvester Stallone says today that I should have kept Apollo Creed alive, I kept him in a wheelchair and all. Sure, what would that have done? It was more like poetry that he died in the ring,
Yeah, it's what he wanted. I think he was going through a midlife crisis, and
yeah,
he needed this, and he was prepared to die if he didn't get it, and that was my impression. And the valiant warrior, it's something we've lost sight of, that there are men who, they want to go out in a blaze of glory, and that's it. And that can mean, a blaze of glory can be through defeat. You've given what you've given the best you could, and that's it.
That's what a lot of soldiers in war, if they just jump out and they just fire off and give me all you got, It'd be like the movie Scarface, when he's at the end, and he doesn't give a shit, and even I suppose he was having an out of body experience when his gun drops and they're still firing at him, but I suppose that's poetic license as well, but however. That's some people, you just want to, if you don't want to surrender, if you don't want to give up, you just rather just get killed, and it's like an honorable way of doing it. It's certainly not a coward's way.
I have to say though, they really do paint Drago in a horrible light. At the start he doesn't speak. He doesn't speak at all. So he's like a sort of he's more robotic than Paul. But
you're actually forgetting. Yeah, but you're forgetting when he was at that press conference, his tongue was somewhere back in customs.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say though, he does actually speak when he has killed Apollo Creed. And what he says is, "Tonight I defeat an old man, an inferior American fighter." Complete Cold War propaganda. And then Rocky's down on his knees. He's trying to get a doctor, for Creed. And Drago continues speaking. "Soon I defeat real champion, and soon whole world will know my name, Drago."
Yeah, I can see why they cut it over, but Sylvester Stallone, I've seen the delete or the new parts that he added into the film, and it's just like if your actor can't do a good Russian accent, you're better off what you done with him. Like if he dies, he dies. It was more cold, and it was more like. But like, drag. It was a bit ridiculous.
I was going to say that you have Rocky. He's more or less decided to fight this guy, and he doesn't even consult his wife. So I don't know if you remember this, Adrian. She's walking into the mansion, and you've got the paparazzi outside. And they're all asking her about Russia. And she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea."
When are you going
that's
to Russia?
That's the way men used to be. That's the way men used to be when they used to wear the trousers. They wouldn't consult their wives when they were going off on a suicide mission.
Although, just before that, I think in his new one, or when the revamped bit one or whatever he done, there was a scene that he probably should have kept in it. Actually, thinking about it now, like there was probably one or two scenes the should have kept in it, but it was from the boxing commission. What I mean? He's saying like, "Oh, he's had one professional fight and one fighter's dead." You know what I mean? We're not doing this for you, like And then Rocky just gets up and walks out, like so. But I think in the film though they had just a little paper photo they did of a boxing commission won't sanction for 2 years or something. But actually the funny thing is about that film. I remember when I was younger, loads of people thought that he actually flew over to Russia and done the fight over there. And I was saying, that wasn't fucking Russia. That was the only thing that the Soviets gave them was that plane, where he's meant to be traveling over. But I'm not sure what part of America I think he shot it in, but it was, it was America. A lot of people thought that he actually went over to, Moscow and done this fight. And I'm saying, this is during the Cold War. You really think that you let that go on?
Yeah, maybe it was in Alaska or somewhere like that. I don't know where it was filmed.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, where there's icy parts of America. I don't know. It could have been somewhere over there, but I certainly know it wasn't Russia. And you can even see at the end of the credits, I think it just says planes deployed by the Soviet Union or whatever, Russia or something like that. So that was the only thing that the supplied them with, really. It was probably for a good few quid as well, seeing as how he needed it.
Yeah. I was going to say as well that Rocky IV, like the first time I ever heard the word suicide was watching it as a kid. And that's when, Adrian tells Rocky going to Russia, fighting this guy, it's suicide. And I remember turning to an older relative and asking, what's suicide? And they told me, and I was like, all right. And I thought it was the strangest thing that someone would intentionally kill themselves, So that shows you the innocence of youth, the innocence of our childhood. I'll just give you a quote, Irish Fenian. So Adrian says, I know what you're thinking. So she's arguing here with Rocky. She's trying to convince him to stay. She says, I know what you're thinking. Don't let this happen. What if it happens to you? It could. You're not a Superman, just a man. What if you end up the same way? Boxing has already killed your two best friends. You've said before you were afraid of losing everything, Rocky. Don't risk everything just to beat that animal. And Rocky just responds. He responds with two words. Got to.
I'd always find it mad the way when you look at a script and it has all the writing in it, but when you look at the film, it's like it's totally different. Like, you know, the words are shortened.
Yeah, the film seems a lot more seamless because you know you've got the distractions of all the images and the sounds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that was it. He didn't consult his wife. He signed whatever contract that he go over to Russia, and that's where he goes. And I think he brings Paulie with him. Paulie's a great guy to travel with. He's very upbeat. Never complains about anything. Doesn't complain about the cold or anything like that. You know?
I think we all know someone like that. You know, every one of us.
Have you ever gone on a holiday with a Paulie type character?
No, but well, I mean, no, because I wouldn't go on a holiday. But I'm saying, like, everyone knows someone like that, so you definitely wouldn't go anywhere with them. The pub would probably be the height of it, and that'd be it. I've had enough of that, like. But yeah, complains about everything he does. Like, even when he gets over there, he's like, you know, but what's this? Is no TV? You know, we'll crack out here.
That's true. I was going to say as well that, you know, when Rocky is when he's leaving the dressing room, Paulie, you know, it's the first time Paulie has really ever said anything positive, and he says to Rocky, he says, you know, I think what you're doing is a great thing. I wish I were you. I respect you, man. Something like that. But by the time they get to the ring, Paulie then says, actually, I changed my mind. I wouldn't like to be you. I wouldn't like to be you going and fighting this guy, you know?
That's when you go, Drago goes, I must break you, and you just see the power of banging like Rocky's gloves, and then Paulie, you remember what I was saying all about back there? He says, forget about it.
He's quite a character. He's quite a character.
Yeah, but he goes, and it's mad, like the way like he goes over there, and also with Apollo's trainer. I think he's played by Tony Burton, Duke, isn't it? The black fella in it.
Duke, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, very very good chess player. He keeps on beating your man, whoever they're in the barn with. But yeah, like it's mad the way, like, you know, like Drago's using all the, you know, the big huge gym he has and all this high tech equipment, and Rocky, you know, is pulling Paulie in a sleigh.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good montage. You know, that you can really see the difference. But the thing is, it kind of the idea, like my impression anyway, was that they were trying to communicate that the Soviet Union was such a strict institution. Because if you see Drago training, it's all indoor, and even when he's jogging, you know, he's jogging around this kind of, I don't know, it's not even a warehouse. It's like a large laboratory. He's just jogging around, like, so he's very confined, even though he's got, you know, high tech equipment. They're pumping him with steroids. You know, it still feels very artificial. Like just the whole thing seems artificial. Whereas the American's out in the elements. Nature will prepare him for the fight. He doesn't have to depend on science. So yeah, it's very good, and I like the music as well in that montage.
Yeah, that was the music that I was talking about earlier on. Yeah, when Rocky first goes out and he's, you know, jumping over the rocks on the pond and just going to put across the Drago then, and it's just, you know, you really see him, you know, he's a badass, you know. But it's like, you know, I suppose from their point of view, it's like they're creating their own little Frankenstein in their gym, you know. Like, you know, they have them with the best of equipment, you know, they're pumping them, as you said, full of steroids, and, you know, it's, and that's why, and I suppose when the Rocky and him do end up fighting, you know, and you see Duke saying, you see, he's not a machine, he's a man, you know.
Yeah, even you know, when Drago hits the machine again, you know, to find out the pressure per square inch or whatever. Now he's even stronger, you know. But the idea is that it's still all calculated. You know, we know the limitations of Drago, but we don't know the limitations of Rocky. And that's the kind of idea of communism, where everything is calculated and it's spread out, and it's the promotion of mediocrity, whereas the hardcore capitalist system, and we're all bemoaning it at the moment, but the idea is that you can make it. You can be a bum from Philadelphia. You can have an IQ, like, you know, the idea in if you look at the first Rocky films, you know, you'd guess that Rocky's IQ is probably 80, 85, but yet he can get a mansion. You know, he can become very rich and very famous in the capitalist system. So you do have that idea that the Soviet structure is all calculated and it's confined within certain parameters, whereas Rocky's out in the elements. You know, the only limits are, you know, beyond the horizon, beyond your wildest dreams. Once you have the heart, you can make it.
That's it, yeah. But, Rocky's now in the so-called Soviet Union, we'll say, even though he's not, but he is for the film's sake. But he's over there, and I have to say, it was his first Rocky, I think, where he really looked ripped. Remember when he came in the ring and like he took off his shirt, and you know, and well, a pair of them were ripped and that. But that's it. Like when he came in, there was a lot of hatred for him. Remember when like they were putting on like his gloves and all that, and he's doing the usual praying, and you know, and then Paulie saying that he if he could unzip himself, I'd be ill and that, but he later retracts that. But when he comes out the gates, you know, it's nothing but well, I suppose it's what Drago felt when he was over in America. They were all booing him, they all hated him as well, so it was only natural that they were going to hate him as well, you know, over there. And that was that they were mostly all soldiers as well. But I think in any communist country, I think they all end up soldiers, do they?
Well, I was going to say, actually, did you not find it very strange when, you know, spoiler alert here, everyone, Rocky beats Drago. So
it's not much of a spoiler.
Yeah. I know. I'm taking the piss, obviously, but no. But did you not find it very strange that, you know, you've got these high up Soviet technocrats? They're all in the audience. These politicians,
like the Politburo, like the ones.
Up. But they all stand up and start, you know, because they sense that there's a change in the wind, and suddenly, which seems very strange to me, all the Russians are supporting Rocky, and they're not supporting Drago, and therefore the politicians are like, oh shit, we better get with the crowd here. So they all start cheering for Rocky as well, you know, and they stand up and clap when he wins.
But it's mad though, like Stallone actually changed that in his new one version of it. He actually had it where, like, yeah, man, who's the not the trainer fella that's sitting beside you, man? Is he meant to be portraying Gorbachev or something? Or whoever, because he has that kind of thing that Gorbachev used to have, the birthmark yoke or whatever on the side of his head or something. But he ends up walking out, and they all end up walking out at the end, and the speech is a little bit different. You see, that this is the thing when he was, you know, tinkering with the new one, director's cut or whatever. But on the one that we're talking about, yeah, like they all, it's like, yeah, what was it they used to say about Stalin? Like, you know, no one wanted to be the first one to stop clapping, like, you know.
Yeah, they probably went out, you know, to drink a bit of vodka and to decide which of the Siberian labor camps they were going to send Drago to, you know, for losing and making the country look bad. So, yeah, that's kind of, we've more or less come to the end of Fenian. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or?
No, it's just, well, excuse me. No, as I said, like when he came out, he was hated as and then, as you said, the loved Drago and all that. But it wasn't until after he cut him, I don't know, maybe it was kind of the film's way of saying that, like, oh, American Spirit or something, because by the 12th round, because after the second round, it kind of goes into the montages of rounds, like, and then people are now cheering for Rocky Balboa and all that. But actually, it was funny though when he first came out and when everyone hated him, there was one soldier among the audience that was whistling for him, and this is before they all loved him then, you know. But yeah, like, but the 12th round, I think they all loved him and that, and then like he was like the pair of them are, you know, and what's the show? I think the music is called War itself. The Vincent the Cola is called War. But yeah, and then like the last round, I think Rocky was just trying to wear him out. He was, because he didn't strike for a while, and then he just like, because he's like, you know, he wouldn't last long if he was really boxing, because he uses his head as, like, you know, the punch bag to wear out the enemy, like, you know, kind of like Homer Simpson used. Remember in The Simpsons, there was an episode like that. And like, you know, he just uses his head as like the punch bag, but then like he eventually, because he wouldn't have been able to win on points, so he needed a knockout, like, so he eventually knocks out the Russian, you know, Drago, you know, eventually knocks him out, and then gives his significant speech that, you know, played a very good role in ending the Soviet Union. So I heard.
Yeah, the speech, I have to say, is it's just terrible. I just thought it was just terrible. And then again, you know, he's obviously concussed. He's taken about 7,000 different punches to the head. You mentioned Homer Simpson. Is that the episode where Moe is his trainer?
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a funny part in that episode where Moe arranges the fight for Homer, and he then tells Homer, "You're fighting a guy." He said, "Don't worry, the guy you're fighting, he's fighting for a sandwich." In other words, he's nothing to lose.
But it was as he kept on going on, and then what's the one that used to kind of play Tyson, the Dredrick Tatum, was there, or something? He was coming up against him, so he wasn't just going to be able to absorb all his blows, you know, without dying.
Yeah, we're really getting off script here, but just to mention that episode again of The Simpsons, I think there's a part where, you know, Homer that whenever Dredrick Tatum he punches Homer, and like his fist almost comes through Homer's head, you know, and it shows like the sitting room in The Simpsons, and it's Grandpa Simpson, and he says to Maggie, "That's your daddy." So yeah, I just conclude anyway, Irish Fenian. Thanks very much for inviting me on to talk about this. I've enjoyed it. I think it's still a great film, you know, even though it's, you know, it's very cheesy in a lot of parts. It has a very strange robot in there for some reason. It's got a lot of quirks, you know. Yeah, it's got a lot of quirks.
I have to say, it was a bit weird the way Paulie changed or tinkered with the voice for the female. A lot of people say it was a sexual thing. I think non-Paulie was just for the buzz. You know what I mean?
It is. Well, it is a bit strange when, you know, when he's going off to Russia with Rocky, and the robot says to Paulie, you know, "Now you have everything." It's a little bit OTT. It's a little bit OTT. But yeah, it's a strange film in ways. I think for a lot of Zoomers, like they probably wouldn't be able to stand this film. But for people who grew up in the 80s and 90s, I think you'd appreciate it with all its with all its warts.
If you've seen this film when you were a kid, like it was a classic, like, and you always loved it, you know, from then on. Like, even as you were saying, it is a cheesy thing. It's loads of montages in it and that, but you know, it's a very good one though.
I just say to people, Irish Fenian, you know, if they're about to go out, you know, you have to go out, you have to leave the house, and you have to meet someone you don't really want to meet, or you've got some arrangement and you're not looking forward to it. Before you go out, just listen to the Rocky IV soundtrack. That'll give you the confidence. that'll put a bit of pep in your step. You can go out then and face the world, and everything will be okay. It has that upbeat 80s aesthetic. So yeah, that's it. Thanks very much, Irish Fenian, for inviting me on. I'll just say that if you're watching this on Irish Fenian's channel, you'll find links to my Odyssey and BitChute. And likewise, if you're watching this on my channel, you'll find a link to Irish Fenian's YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Irish Fenian.
No problem. This was a very great chat, I think, and movie review. And I'll just finish up by saying, well, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that if I can change and you can change, everybody can change.
I couldn't have said it better myself.